So please welcome Jennifer, Autism, a Business Superpower. You want this in here?
Yeah.
Do it the right way around.
Yay.
And there we are. You are there.
Also a superpower, intense awkwardness going, so I hope mobility is excellent. Right, well, I'm Jennifer and I'm autistic. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk, I'm all good. I'm not funny, I am not funny. Anyway, now you might wonder to yourself, you're autistic, but you don't look autistic. To which I would say, what am I actually supposed to look like? I mean, if I've missed a memo about like fashion or whatever the autistic chic is, then I need to know, because I've just sort of gone with like broke writer who kind of didn't quite grow up as a chic. So I wanted to start by talking about autism and just explaining it a little bit. Now, autism is a lifelong developmental disability that affects how people perceive and interact with the world. I'll just grab this, it's a lot easier this way. Now, all autistic people share certain difficulties, but the way in which autism affects them will be very, very different, as it is a spectrum condition. It is not set in stone. So the old adage is perfect, actually, which is once you've met an autistic person, you've met one autistic person. I thought it might also be worth noting that as of this point in the scientific community, it's thought that autism starts in the womb. Also worth mentioning that we're not all a little autistic and there is no cure. If anyone suggests otherwise, well, I'm very sorry to say they are sadly wrong. Now, I was diagnosed quite early. I was 4, so this was December 1993, if any of you can remember back that far, which the fact I can remember terrifies even me, and I was a toddler. Now, this was after months of investigation. Now, in this day, you'll have scans, but they go through a lot of different vigorous assessments. Back in '93, there was a scan and a pediatrician who said, "Good luck with that," and walked off. My mum was told I wouldn't read, I wouldn't speak, and I wouldn't write or, and I quote, "be of any use to society." Ta-da! I mean, I have crippling student debt and only a few qualifications, but it could be a lot worse. Now, she didn't have the internet. Of course, as I said, this was in the early to mid-90s, on not a lot of resources, but cobbled together, she put in a lot of work. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there about being autistic and their quality of life, and I must stress at this point that it is difficult if you're in a situation where there are profound difficulties, where you cannot live independently, when, say there's an autistic person in your life who is non-verbal or unable to fend for themselves, I would never diminish or minimize how difficult that can be, and I have utmost respect for anyone who deals with that. What I would say, though, is the majority of us have a pretty great quality of life, depending on any sort of early interventions or how it turns out with our family and our education. I mean, we're parents, some of us. I'm not, but some of my closest autistic friends are parents, some of which with autistic kids, some not. I'm a sister, I'm a business owner, I'm a partner. I am the pain in the butt that goes, "Oi, have you eaten yet? Are you okay?" To several of my friends who just go, "Oh, really? Okay." So, yeah, I mean, let's put it this way. There's plenty of different famous autistic people like David Byrne from the Talking Heads, which I only learnt about yesterday. But, the creator of Pokemon, you got Greta Thunberg with her excellent, environmental activism. You've got like Dan Aykroyd and Anthony Hopkins. They're all on the autistic spectrum, but no one would question their quality of life. So it's worth, considering, our own. So I wanted to go into why I went into business a little bit. Now, about a year ago, I ended up in a situation where I lost my job, and I had struggled in employment due to, an inflexible workplace. Considering how autistics can be categorized as inflexible, there is a definite irony. But, I got into soap making, and well, something I'll touch on later, I got very obsessive into every bit of soap making. How do you do it? Is it worth going vegan? What kind of recipes work best? What do you not put in a soap? What do you put in a soap? Suddenly, it was about 5 days later. I hadn't left the flat, and I thought, I'll give this a go. Try and make some. Make a few, sold most of them, and my friends go, are you going to make any more? I thought, all right, why not? Cool, I don't have anything better to do. At that point, I then set up, of course, everything on social media, because that's the way it goes now. So I've effectively been in business for about a year, and I've managed to expand into lip balms and candles, which provided excellent research opportunities, which one of my favorite things to do when I get interested in something is to sit and read for hours. Like, it can get to, say, I can start at 12 midday, get to about 8. Oh, yeah, I haven't eaten yet. Oh, yeah, I should probably go do that. But yeah, I've done a variety of different markets too. I've done Brighton Open Market, Brighton Craft Fair, Bow Natural events as well. So I've done a variety just in the past, like since February. Now, I know what you might be wondering. You might be thinking, well, how does autism actually help with business? Because you might immediately think about the hindrances and you might immediately think of obstacles. And obstacles certainly exist, although I think it's worth noting a lot of them are societal obstacles rather than anything to do with my condition. But I wanted to go through a few of my traits and explain how actually they're very helpful. Something I touched on earlier is my repetitive need for patterns and behaviours. Now, I like routine. I love patterns. I've been known, if I've had to go into A&E and there's ceiling tiles, I'll just go up and go, okay, 1, 2, 3. And I could be perfectly happy doing that for quite some time. And then all of a sudden the doctor's come in and I've gone, wait, what? Oh, yeah. Now, I have a very professional and repeated script in my head when I talk to people when I'm at a market. And this has grown from doing customer service jobs in the past, from my stint as a GP's receptionist, which is as fun as it sounds, and like legit too many stories. That could be like an hour TED talk on its own. But, it allowed me to be able to learn how to talk to people, but also allowed me to come up with patterns that would become useful. So for me, when I'm talking to someone at my table, the information I have in my head that I'm going to tell people comes up as verses, almost like songs on a manuscript on sheet paper. I can read music, so it'd be sheet. So it could just be one verse where I say, like, hello, welcome to Coronation Soap. And that would be about it, because they've gone, oh, right, well, I'm off now. But it could be all sorts. And the verses can change depending on what the person's asked, what you're interested in looking at, what you might have picked up, what other questions might come up. So it's almost like a changing song. It's almost like lots of different changing songs on shuffle and composing as you go, which, yeah, it's all the fun. Now, as I said, there is no chorus, just short verses. So it could just be a very quick sort of intro track, or it could end up being, like a sung sonnet. But my lack of deviation is really helpful, because if someone's telling you different things or trying to deviate and trying to constantly circle around questions, and you might wonder, wait, hang on, what are your intentions? Are you actually being genuine here? Whilst with me, because I'm quite rigid and I can repeat the information pretty consistently, it's like, oh, well, actually, in that case, that's pretty honest. That's pretty consistent. And you've said that multiple times. So that then sticks in your head then, because you go, right, that makes sense. Well, she did say that. And then it sticks in. And then sometimes people go, I remember you because of this particular sentence that's been stuck in my head for hours on end. Thanks, Jen. You're welcome. You're welcome. Now, there's another thing I'd love to touch on, which is hypersensitive sensory issues. Now, autistic folk may experience over or under sensitivity to sounds, touch, tastes, smells, lights, colours, temperatures, or pain. And whilst I have to mention the cold sea thing is great, but I would be in sensory meltdown in like -2 seconds. I'm like, So otherwise it would be really awesome. Now, there are difficulties in processing everyday sensory information. Now, all of my senses are, as you probably guessed, oversensitive. This includes, in particular, touch and smell. So, for example, if I'm going down the street and there's a bakery down the road, I'm the first person to smell the fresh bread, and I can probably work out, oh, wait, they've put this in the bread. How do you smell? can you not smell the bread? It's really tasty bread down there. And then like 10 steps later, I think I smell bread. So my sense of pain is heightened as well. I unfortunately have chronic pain syndrome and fibromyalgia and EDS type 3. I'm a medical marvel. It's great. But now you may wonder why this is even useful in business. You might think, well, hang on, how is that slightly useful? Like, that just sounds really annoying. Surely you get into sensory overload. Well, that can happen if you're not careful, if you're not prepared, and there is a degree of preparation that goes into things. But there's two aspects in which my sensory issues actually come useful. Now, for first, as I said, I make handmade vegan soaps and lip balms and candles, and they're all scented. Now, I can smell so sensitively, I've pretty much perfected the right amount of fragrance so that if you're going to smell it, rather than going, oh, God, bleh, rather than it being too much and hurting your nose, you're like, oh, I can smell that. And it's not too much, it's not too pungent, it's not an assault on your nose. Now, my products also are made for folks like myself in mind. I mean, I'm not just autistic, as I said. I've got physical issues too. As you can see, I use a walking stick. Sometimes I require a wheelchair. And there are various folks just like myself who do have issues with certain shapes, might have pain in their hands, so they might be able to handle certain shapes, but not others. They might not be able to handle certain smells because it's too much, too aggressive. Certain colors are too much. So with that all in mind, I can tailor around and go, okay, so if you can't handle this, this is what or if you prefer like a circular shape, try this thing. I can, if you want to order one, I can make it to your color specification or to your specs. Just ask me what you would like and we can sort of take it from there. Because, apart from anything else, a shared sense of empathy goes a huge amount of way. And especially when you're dealing with stuff like cosmetics, you might not think about it. But, there's a lot of things that are very inaccessible to the disabled community. And on that note, highly focused interests. That's one of the other aspects of autism that I definitely have. If I get onto a topic, then I am hyper-focused. Like, for example, I'm a giant fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer to the point I have a tattoo of it. If you ask nicely, I'll show you later. But, it's obsessive and it's focused and you can go, oh, yeah. And then because I've spent all that time doing the research, doing the work, if you ask me a question about what I do, unless it's very obscure, I'll be able to answer go, oh yeah, it's this, which is handy. And I suppose the point of this talk is to demonstrate something. Like, autism isn't easy. It's not, a bed of roses. There are all sorts of issues that can come up. But actually, if you allow us the space and you allow us the ability to thrive and to use what we can do, we can change the world. The world, we don't need to change for the world. Perhaps the world should change for us. And yeah, that's really the whole thing. So I'd love to also inspire anyone who is in my position, whether you have something mild or whether something serious. I want you guys to know it's possible. Find a method through. You'll get there. Thanks.
She's good, isn't she? Don't go. So where can everybody find you?
Everyone can find me on my Coronation Soap page. It's on Facebook and on Instagram. I am very vocal and active because I don't sleep very much, so I'm always something at 3 a.m. Oh, I've got to answer this.
Thank you, Jennifer. Fabulous.